We are live. 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 Isn't that just like people you be struggling through? And then you be, here we go now. Hold on 1 second. We are live. We are live. We are live. We are live. Emunah is singing. Emunah is singing. All praise be to the Most High. All praise be to the Most High, the Holy God of creation. Breathe that one out. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Emunah Yisrael on this 29th day of December, which is actually the 10th month in real life. But in this Gregorian calendar year, we started in the beginning of the Gregorian calendar year. And so this is the last installment of the full-blown reading of the LEV Project. Hopefully, this would be enough to whet your appetite, get you interested in looking at the big boogeyman. You know, I had to put on my head wrap for this one. You know, for a while, I've been like, you guys, welcome back once again. I'm just going to go ahead and read and then go to sleep, right? So I was like, no, I got to show my face for this last one. It's been a heavy year. Let me just say that. A very informative year, a very, I don't know. I do know it's been a whole lot for me anyway, in my personal growth and sharing and edification. So we're going to read this last chapter. Hopefully, I was hoping that we could get people to chime in on this last chapter. But even if we don't, I'm going to finish it in true form. You know, I was missing in there. We had some spotty spaces in there, but we never gave up. Never gave up. And saw it through to the end. Never underestimate the power of one. I want to give a shout out to all and everyone who tuned in. Those who early on came through and lend their voice. And, you know, again, another same time you plant the seed, it was, so it's all good. We are going to be reading now chapter. I turned on my camera, y'all, because not all the time at this time of night I'll be feeling like turning on my camera. But for this last episode, I'm all grinning because it's like, yeah. So, chapter 12. Olaudah has been through some stuff, okay? He is a character study in and of itself. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, most high willing, this coming year. Still sharing in a different capacity, not so condensed. You know, I'm going to be sprinkling it as I continue with my studies. But yeah, let's finish up Olaudah Equiano, and then we'll talk about all that stuff. So this is the latter chapter. This is the last chapter. He almost got stolen back into slavery, which I'm like, man, this dude. So he almost got kidnapped again by this by the captain who didn't want to free him. And he said the captain was beating him up and abusing him greatly is the terms he would use. You know, just hearing him tell his story, you begin to kind of see what type of person he would be, right? But anyway, let me see here. Oopsie. This is Shalom, sis. How you doing? You raising your hand? You want to read? Do we have a reader? Let me know if we have a reader. Because all you got to do is tell me the word, you know. Do we have a reader? Let me know, Sister Dayo, if you would like to read. We will be glad to have you. I'm still listening and I'm still here. So let me know. Put it in the chat box. Chapter 12, different transactions of the author's life to the present time. His application to the late Bishop of London to be appointed a missionary to Africa. Very interesting. Some account of his share of the conduct of the late expedition in Sierra Leone. Petition to the Queen. Conclusion. You gonna read? Y'all, you want the link? Hold on. Y'all don't play with my little emotions here. Let me see here. Where is the link for this? And anyone else who comes in, if you would like to share, I'm just going to put the link in the box, and what you will have to do is just click on it, and you shall be able to come in. So let me, okay, there we go. No, you don't want to read? Yeah, see, you're playing with my emotions here. I'll put the link in the box, even if you just want to show your face or share your voice. Here's the link. And let me put the link over here as well. Hold on one second. Hashtag. Okay. All right, here we go. You ready? Okay. All right. Such were the various scenes to which I was witness and the fortune I experienced until the year of 1777. Since that period, my life has been more uniform and the incidents of it fewer than in any of other equal number of years preceding. I therefore hasten to the conclusion of a narrative, which I fear the reader may think already sufficiently tedious. I had suffered so much impositions in my commercial transactions in different parts of the world that I became heartily disgusted with the seafaring life and was determined not to return to it, at least for some time. I therefore once more engaged in service shortly after my return and continued for the most part in the situation until 1784. Soon after my arrival in London, I saw a remarkable circumstance relative to African complexion, whatever that means, which I thought so extraordinary that I shall beg leave just to mention it. A white Negro woman that I had formerly seen in London and other parts had married a white man by whom she had 3 boys, and they were every one mulattoes, and yet they had fine light hair. In 1779, I served Governor McNamara, who had been a considerable time on the coast of Africa. In the time of my service, I used to ask frequently other servants to join me in family prayer, but this only excited their mockery. However, the governor, understanding that I was of a religious turn, wished to know what religion I was of. I told him that I was a Protestant of the Church of England, agreeable to the 39 articles of that church, and that whoever I found preaching according to that doctrine, those I would hear. A few days, let me see here. I must have hit the computer. A few days after this, he had some more discourse on the same subject, when he said he would, if I choose, as he had thought I might be of service in converting my countrymen to the gospel faith, get me sent on a missionary to Africa. This is the first time I'm hearing him talk about the continent since he left. At first, I refused going and told him I had been served on a like occasion by some white people the last voyage I went to Jamaica, when I attempted, if it were the will of God, to by means of converting the Indian prince, and said I suppose they would serve me worse than Alexander the coppersmith did St. Paul. Hold on for me one second. Right. He says, if I should attempt to go among them in Africa, he told me not to fear, for he would apply to the Bishop of London to get me ordained. On these terms, I consented to the governor's proposal to go to Africa in hope of doing good, if possible, amongst my countrymen. First time in years. So in order to have me sent out properly, we immediately wrote the following letter to the late Bishop of London. To the Right Reverend Father and God, Robert Lord Bishop of London, the memorial of Gustavus Vassa. Show wet, he says, that your memorialist is a native of Africa and has a knowledge of manners and customs of the inhabitants of that country. That your memorialist has resided in different parts of Europe for 22 years last past and embraced the Christian faith in the year of 1759. That your memorialist is a desire of returning to Africa as a missionary, if encouraged by your lordship in hopes of being able to prevail upon his countrymen to become Christians. So Anyway, let me just continue. And your memorialist is more induced to undertake the same from the success that has attended the like undertaking when encouraged by the Portuguese through different settlements on the coast of Africa, and also by the Dutch. Both governments encouraged the blacks, who by their education are qualified to undertake the same, and are found more proper than European clergymen unacquainted with the language and customs of the country. Your memorialist's only motive for soliciting the office of missionary is that he may be a means under God of reforming his countrymen and persuading them to embrace the Christian religion. Therefore, your memorialist humbly prays your lordship's encouragement in supporting the undertaking. Gustavus Vassa. At Mr. Guire Taylor's number 17 Hedge Lane, he says, I guess he's writing to a whole lot of people. He says, my lord, I have resided near 7 years on the coast of Africa, for most part of time commanding officer. From the knowledge I have of the country and its inhabitants, I'm inclined to think that within plan will be attended with great success. What is this? Contestant by your lordship, I beg further to represent to your lordship that the like attempts, when encouraged by other governments, have met with uncommon success. And at this very time, I know a very respectable character, a black priest, a Cape Coast castle. I know the within named Gustavus Vassa and believed him a moral good man. I have the honor to be, my lord, your lordship, humble and obedient service, Macron and Mara. So he's getting all of these references. Grove, 11th March 1779. This letter was also accompanied by the following from Dr. Wallace, who also resided in Africa for many years, and whose sentiments on the subject of African missionary were the same as Governor McNamara's. And this is March 13th, 1779. My lord, I have resided near 5 years in Senegambia on the coast of Africa and have the honor of filling very considerable employment in that province. I do approve of the within plan and think the undertaking very laudable and proper, and that it deserves your lordship's protection and encouragement, in which case it must be attended with the intended success. I am, my lord, your lordship, humble and obedient service, Thomas Wallace. I guess they had the little stamp that everybody signs off the same way, who knows. With these letters, I waited on the bishop by the governor's desire and presented them to his lordship. He received me with much condescension and politeness, but from some certain scruples of delicacy, and saying that the bishop were not of opinion in sending a new missionary to Africa, he declined to ordain me. My sole motive for thus dwelling on this transaction or inserting these papers is the opinion which gentlemen of sense and education who are acquainted with Africa entertain of probability of converting the inhabitants to the faith of J.C. If the attempt were if the attempt were contestants by the legislature, section 2. So they say, nah, dude, get out of here. We not making you no missionary. Shortly after this, I left the governor and served a nobleman in the Dorsetshire militia, with whom I was encamped at Colksheath for some time. But the operations there were too minute and uninterested to make detail of. In the year, he likes hype, So in the year 1783, I visited 8 countries in Wales from motives of curiosity. While I was in the part of the country, I was led to go down into a coal pit in Shropshire, but my curiosity nearly cost me my life. For while I was in the pit, the coals fell in and buried one poor man, who was not far from me. Upon this, I got out as fast as I could, thinking the surface of the earth the safest part of it. In the spring of 1784, I thought of visiting Old Ocean again. Oh boy, he getting ocean fever. Hold on one second, let me make sure. He's getting ocean fever. Oh, you were saying it sounds good. Okay, no problem. In 1784, he's getting ocean fever. I thought of visiting Old Ocean again. In consequence of this, embarked as steward on board a fine new ship called the London, commanded by Martin Hopkins, and sailed for New York. I admired this city very much. It is large and well built, abounds with provisions of all kinds. While we lay here, a circumstance happened which I thought extremely singular. One day, a malefactor was to be executed on a gallows. Did he call him a malefactor? But with condition that if any woman having nothing on but her shift married the man under the gallows, his life was to be saved. The extraordinary privilege was claimed. The woman presented herself and the marriage ceremony was performed. I never heard of that before, but or our ship having got laden, we returned to London in January 1785. When she was again ready for another voyage, the captain being an agreeable man, I sailed with him from thence in spring, March 1785, for Philadelphia. On the 5th of April, we took our departure from the Land's End with a pleasant gale, and about 9 that night, the moon shined bright and the sea was smooth, while our ship was going free by the wind at the rate of about 4 or 5 miles an hour. At this time, another ship was going nearly as fast as we, the opposite point, meeting us right in the teeth. Yet none of on board observed either ship until we struck each other forcibly head to head, to the astonishment and consternation of both crews. She did us much damage, but I believe we did her more. For when we passed by each other, we did very quickly. They called to us to bring to and hoist out our boats, but we had enough to do mind ourselves, and in about 8 minutes we saw no more of her. We refitted as well as we could the next day and proceeded on our journey, and in May arrived in Philadelphia. For those who've just joined us, last chapter, Olaudah Equiano, chapter 12, section 2. I was very glad to see this favorite old town once more, and my pleasure was much increased to seeing the worthy Quakers freeing and easing the burdens of many of my oppressed African brethren. This is rare for him. It rejoiced my heart when one of these friendly people took me to see a free school they had erected for every denomination of black people whose minds were cultivated here and forwarded to virtue, and thus they are made useful members of the community. Does not the success of this practice say loudly to the planters in the language of scripture, go ye and do likewise? On October 1785, I was accompanied by some of the Africans and presented an address of thanks to the gentlemen called Friends or Quakers. In White Hart Court or Lombard Street, these gentlemen received us kindly with a promise to exert themselves on behalf of the oppressed Africans, and we parted. Section 3, we're moving through section 3, chapter 12. The link is in the box if you'd like to follow along. While in town, I chanced once to be invited to a Quaker wedding. The simple and yet expressive mode used at their solemnization is worthy of note. The following is true to form of it. After the company had met, they have seasonal exhortations by several of the members. The bride and bridegroom stand up, taking each other by the hand in a solemn manner. The man audibly declares his purpose. Friends, in the fair of the LORD, in the presence of this assembly, whom I desire to be my witness, I take this, my friend, MN, to be my wife, promising through divine assistance to be unto her a loving and faithful husband. And then they say, till death do them part. And the woman makes a like declaration. Then the two first sign their name to the record, and as many more witnesses as have a mind. I had the honor to subscribe mine to a register in White Hart Court, Lombard Street. This mode I highly recommend. We returned to London in August, and our ship, not going immediately to sea, I shipped as a steward in an American ship called the Harmony. Captain John Willett and left London. Captain John Willett and left London in March 1786, bound to Philadelphia. 11 days after sailing, we carried our free mast away. We had 9 weeks' passage, which caused our trip not to succeed well, the market for our good proving bad. And to make it worse, my commander began to play me the little tricks, as others too often practice on free Negroes in the West Indies. But I thank God, I found many friends here who in some measure prevented him. On my return to London in August, I was very agreeably surprised to find that the benevolence of the government adopted the plan of some philanthropic individuals, to send the Africans from hence to their native quarter, and that some vessels were then engaged to carry them to Sierra Leone, an act which redounded to the honor of all concerned in its promotion, and filled me with prayers and much rejoicing. There was then in the city a select committee of gentlemen for the black poor, to some of whom I had the honor of being known, and as soon as they heard of my arrival, they sent for me to the committee. When I came there, they informed me of the intention of the government, and as they seemed to think me qualified to superintend part of the undertaking, they asked me to go with the Black poor to Africa. I pointed out to them many objections to my going. Did he just want to go? Now he's saying he didn't want to go. Sit down. Sit down. Hold on 1 second. All right, we're good. And he says, I pointed out to them many objections to my going, and particularly I expressed some difficulties on the account of the slave dealers. So at this point, this is what, 1786, thereabouts. Now he's still suspect because the slave trade is still going strong for people who claim it never really happened. There was no such boats, and a lot of lived on boats. I know I said that yesterday, but I'm going to address some of these erroneous slave conversations that are floating around the blogosphere. I said, I pointed out to them many objections to my going, and particularly I expressed some difficulty on the account of the slave dealers, as I would certainly oppose their traffic in the human species by every means in my power. However, these objections were overruled by the gentlemen of the committee, who prevailed on me to consent to go, and recommended me to the honorable commissioners of His Majesty's Navy as a proper person to act as commissary for government in the intended expedition. And they accordingly appointed me in November 1786 to that office and gave me sufficient power to act for the government in the capacity of commissary, having received my warrant and the following order. So now they said, no, you can't go. And now someone else is telling him you must go. By the principal officer and commissionaries of the Majesty's Navy. Whereas you are directed by our warrant of the 4th of last month to receive into your charge from Mr. Joseph Irwin the surplus provisions remaining of what was provided for the journey or voyage. Sorry, I don't know where I put journey in there. As well as the provisions of the support of the Black poor. After the landing at Sierra Leone with the clothing, tools, and all other articles provided at government's expense, and as the provisions were laid in at the rate of 2 months for the voyage, and for 4 months after landing, but the number embarked being so much less than we expected, whereby, are they sending back the old stuff? I'm sorry. Whereby there may be a considerable surplus of provisions, clothing, etc. These are in addition to former orders to direct and require you to appropriate or dispose of such surplus to the best advantage you can for the benefit of the government, keeping and rendering to us a faithful account of what you do herein, and for your guidance in preventing any white persons going who are not intended to have the indulgence of being carried thither. We send you herewith a list of those recommended by the Committee for the Poor Black, or the Black poor, are proper persons to be permitted to embark, and acquaint you that you are not to suffer any others to go who do not produce a certificate from the Committee for the Black poor. I got to look into what is that, of their having their permission for it, for which this shall be your warrant, dated at the Navy Office, January 16th, 1786, J. Winslow, Geo Marshall, W. Palmer, to Mr. Gustavus Vassa, Commissary of Provisions and Stores for Black poor to Sierra Leone. So whatever they were supposed to transport, and they're like, we can't get no money for it. You take the leftovers, take it back. Yeah, go ahead, Black poor man, go and do our bidding. I'm sorry, I interjected that. I didn't say that. Okay, I proceed immediately to the executing of my duty on board the vessels destined for the voyage, where I continue to the march following. And to my understanding, this is the first time in all his sailing he actually goes back to the continent. And what is his first concern? Slave traders. Section 4. During my continuance on the employment of government, I was struck with the flagrant abuses committed by the agent and endeavored to remedy them, but without any effect. One instance among many which I could produce may serve as a specimen. Government had ordered to be provided all necessaries, slops as they are called, included for 750 persons. However, not being able to muster more than 426, I was ordered to send the superfluous slops, etc., to the King's stores at Portsmouth. But when I demanded them for that purpose for the agent, it appeared they had never been bought, though paid for by the government. But that was not all. To go in. Baby just threw me off where I'm at. That was not all. It appears that it was not all. But that was not all. Government were not the only subjects of peculation. Those poor people suffered infinitely more. Their accommodations were most wretched. Many of them wanted beds, many more clothing, and other necessities. For the truth of this and much more, I do not seek credit for my own assertion. I appeal to the testimony of Captain Thompson of the Nautilus, who convoyed us, to whom I applied in February 1787 for a remedy when I had remonstrated to the agent in vain and even brought him to be a witness of the injustice and oppression I had complained of. I appeal also to a letter written by these wretched people so early as the beginning of the preceding January and published in the Morning Herald on the 4th of that month, signed by 20 of their chiefs. I could not silently suffer government to be thus cheated and my countrymen plundered and oppressed and even left destitute of the necessaries for almost their existence. I therefore informed the commissionaries of Navy of the agent proceeding, but my dismission was soon after procured by the means of a gentleman in the city. 1 second. Stay there. On the couch, please. Give me 1 second, everybody. Somebody wants to play games. Sit on the couch. Where did he say? Whom the agent, conscious of his peculation, had deceived by letters, and who, moreover, empowered the same agent to receive on board at the government's expense a number of persons as passengers, contrary to the orders I received. By this, I suffered a considerable loss in my property. However, the commissioners were satisfied with the conduct and wrote to Captain Thompson expressing their approbation of it. Thus provided, they proceeded on their journey and last worn out by treatment, perhaps not the most mild, and wasted by sickness, brought on by what of medicine, clothing and bedding, etc., they reached Sierra Leone just at the commencement of the rains. At that season of the year, it is impossible to cultivate the lands. Their provisions, therefore, were exhausted before they could derive any benefit from agriculture, and it is not surprising that many, especially the Lascars, whose constitutions are very tender and who had been cooped up in ships from October to June and accommodated in the manner I have mentioned, should be so wasted by their confinement as long to survive. So, to my understanding, they're trying to send those who they stole from the continent, brought to England, and now they're trying to send them back. So they send him back with them, and similar conditions that they took them from the continent with. These are the similar, starvation, hunger, nakedness. These are the conditions that they're sending them back in on the boat. Thus ended my part of the long talked of expedition to Sierra Leone, an expedition which, however unfortunate in the event, was humane and politic in its design, nor was its failure owing to government. Everything was done on their part, but there was evidently sufficient mismanagement attending to the conduct and execution of it to defeat its success. I should not have been so ample in my account of this transaction had not the share I borne in it been made the subject of partial animadversion, and even my dismission from my employment, though thought worthy of being made by Hoare and others, matter of public triumph. The motive which might influence any person to descend to a petty contest with an obscure African and to seek gratification by his depression, perhaps is not proper here to inquire into or relate, even if its detection was necessary to my vindication. Okay, sounds like he got into some beef here. Because it says, see the Public Advertiser, July 14, 1787. So it sounds like there was some beef around this whole conversation. But I thank heaven it is not. I wish to stand by my own integrity and not to shelter myself under the impropriety of another. And I trust the behavior of the commissioners of the Navy to me entitled me to make this assertion. For after I had been dismissed March 24th, I drew up a memorial. So yeah, they say he put something in the paper. The above petition was delivered into the hands of their lordships, who were kind enough in the space of some few months afterwards, without hearing, to order me 50 sterling, that is 18 pounds, wages for the time upwards of 4 months. I acted a faithful part in their service. Certainly the sum is more than a free Negro would have had in the Western colonies. And he ain't say nothing about Sierra Leone. He ain't say nothing. Anywho, let me continue. From that point to the present, my life has passed in an event tenure, and great part of my study and attention has been made to assist in the cause of my much inquired countrymen. March the 21st, 1788, I had the honor of presenting the Queen with a petition on behalf of my African brethren, who was received most graciously by Her Majesty. He goes on to say the Negro Consolidation Act made by the Assembly of Jamaica last year. I gotta mark this stuff. I gotta look this stuff up. You guys feel free to look it up. The Negro Consolidation Act. So this would have been 87. And the new Act of Amendment now in agitation there contain a proof of existence of those charges that have been made against the planters relative to the treatment of their slaves. I hope to have the satisfaction of seeing the renovation of liberty and justice resting on the British government to vindicate the honor of our common nature. These, because he became active in the abolitionist movement by this time. He, if I'm not mistaken, I think we spoke about it, the Zong massacre. He testified to some of the treatment, or he put something forth. Let's see if he talks about it. But there was a Zong massacre that was took place in Jamaica, and the man threw everybody overboard for the insurance money, and it became a breaking case in England. So look that up if you haven't looked it up before, the Zong massacre. Hold on. What's up, Sister Angel? How you doing? We are currently on section 5 of the last chapter, chapter 12. I hope to have the satisfaction of seeing the renovation of liberty resting on the British government to vindicate the honor of our common nature. These are concerns which do not perhaps belong to any particular office, but to speak more seriously to every man of sentiment actions. Like these are the just and sure foundations of future fame. A reversion, though remote, is coveted by some noble mans of substantial good. It is upon these grounds that I hope and expect the attention of gentlemen in power. These are designs consonant to the elevation of their rank and the dignity of their stations. They are ends suitable to the nature of a free and generous government, and connected with views of empire and dominion, so suited to the benevolence and sole merit of legislature. It is a pursuit of substantial greatness. May the time come, at least the speculation to me is pleasing, when the sable people shall gratefully commemorate the auspicious era of extensive freedom. Don't do that. I'm gonna have to go see a baby. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna have to go see a baby. 1 second. Thank you for your patience. I had to go see a baby. All right, hold on. Oh, man. Where are we? It is a pursuit of substantial greatness. May the time come, at least the speculation to me is pleasing, when the sable people shall gratefully commemorate the auspicious era of extensive freedom. Then shall those persons particularly be named with praise and honor, who generously purposed and stood forth in the cause of humanity, liberty, and good policy, and brought to the ear of the legislature designs worthy of royal patronage and adoption. May heaven make the British senators the dispensers of light, liberty, and science to the utmost parts of the earth. Then will the glory of God in the highest on earth, and peace and goodwill to men. Glory, honor, peace, etc. to every soul of man that worketh good, to the Britons first. Okay, he's signing off real hard, right? Because to them the gospel is preached, and also to the nations. Those that honor their maker have mercy on the poor. It is righteousness exalt a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity, and the wicked, oh, he going hard right now, shall fall by their own wickedness. May the blessings of the LORD be upon the heads of all those who commiserated the causes of the oppressed Negro, and the fear of God prolong their days, and may their expectations be filled with gladness. The liberal device liberal things, and the liberal things shall stand. Isaiah 32:8. They can say with pious Job, did not I weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? Job 3:30 and 25. Okay, section 6. As the inhumane traffic of slavery is to be taken into the consideration of the British legislature, I doubt not if a system of commerce was established in Africa, the demand for manufacturers will most rapidly augment as the native inhabitants will insensibly adopt the British fashions, manners, customs, etc. In proportion to the civilization, so will be the consumption of British manufactures. The wear and tear of the continent, nearly twice as large as Europe, and rich in vegetable and mineral production, is much easier conceived than calculated. Case in point, the cost of the Aborigines of Britain little or nothing in clothing, etc. The difference between their forefathers and the present generation in point of consumption is literally infinite. The supposition is most obvious. It will be equally immense in Africa. The same cause, viz. Civilization, will ever have the same effect. It is trading upon safe ground. A commercial intercourse with Africa opens an inexhaustible source of wealth to the manufacturing interests of Great Britain, and to all which the slave trade is an objection. If I am not misinformed, the manufacturing interest is equal, if not superior, to the landed interest as to the value for reason which will soon appear. The abolition of slavery, so diabolical, will give a most rapid extension of manufactures, which is totally and diametrically opposed to what some interested people assert. The manufacture of this country must and will, in the nature and reason of things, have a full and constant employ by supplying the African markets. Population, the bowels and surface of Africa abound in valuable and useful returns. The hidden treasures of centuries will be brought to light and into circulation. So instead of stealing your people, we're going to steal your resources, basically what he's saying. Industry, enterprise, and mining will have their full scope still going on today, proportionably as they civilize. In a word, it's lay out open an endless field of commerce to the British manufacturers and merchant adventurers. The manufacturing interests and general interests are synonymous. The abolition of slavery will be in reality a universal good. Tortures, murders, and every other imaginable barbarity and inequity are practiced upon the poor slaves with impunity. I hope the slave trade will be abolished. I pray it may be an event at hand. The great body of manufacturing uniting in the cause will considerably facilitate and expedite it. And as I have already stated, it is most sustainable. I'm bugging out, right? It is most substantially their interest and advantage, and as such, the nation at large, except those persons concerned in manufacturing neck yokes, collars, chains, handcuffs, leg bolts, drags, thumb screws, iron muzzles, coffins, cats, scourges, and other instruments of torture used in the slave trade. In a short time, one sentiment will alone prevail for the motives of interest as well as justice and humanity. And I believe they abolished it like early 1800s, like towards here is 1808, which they were still illegally transporting slaves, of course, up to the, way past the abolition, but we'll continue. He's making an argument here. In a short time, he said, Europe contains 120 million of inhabitants, Query, how many millions doth Africa contain? Suppose the Africans collectively and individually to expend £5 a head in raiment and furniture yearly, when civilized, etc., etc., an immensity beyond the reach of imagination. This I conceive to be a theory founded upon facts, and therefore an infallible one. If the blacks were permitted to remain in their own country, they would double themselves every 15 years. In proportion to such increase will be the demand for manufactures, cotton, indigo, grow spontaneously in most parts of Africa, a consideration this of no small consequence to the manufacturing towns of Great Britain. It opens a most immense, glorious, and happy prospect, the clothing, etc., of a continent 10,000 miles in circumference, and immensely rich in production of every denomination in return for manufactures. Section 7, and the last section. Since the first publication of my narrative, I have been in great variety of scenes in many parts of Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, an account of which might well be added here. But as this would swell the volume too much, I shall only observe in general that in May of 1791, I sailed for Liverpool to Dublin, where I was very kindly received, and from thence to Cork, and then traveled over many countries in Ireland. I was everywhere exceedingly well treated by persons of all ranks. I found the people extremely hospitable, particularly in Belfast, where I took my passage on board a vessel for Clyde on the 29th of January and arrived at Green Rock on the 30th. Soon after, I returned to London, where I found persons of note from Holland and Germany who requested me to go there. And I was glad to hear that an edition of my narrative had been printed in both places, also in New York. I remained in London till I heard the debate in the House of Commons on the slave trade. April the 2nd and the 3rd, I then went to Shoreham in Cambridgeshire and was married. What? Get out of here. This is the first time. Yo, why he wait to the last page of the book? Yo, Olaudah was a wild dude, man. You never heard about no woman, no wife, or nothing. Now all of a sudden he got married out the blue. That let a man tell a story. Hold on, let me see here. He says, I remained in London till I heard the debate of the House of Commons on the slave trade, April the 2nd and 3rd. I then went to Southam in Cambridgeshire and was married on the 7th of April to Miss Cullen, daughter of James and Anne Cullen, late Eli. He says, I have only therefore to request the reader's indulgence and conclude I am far from the vanity of thinking there is any merit in this narrative. I hope censure will be suspended when it is considered that it was written by one who was unwilling to unable to adorn the plainness of truth by the coloring of imagination. My life and fortune has been extremely checkered, and my adventures various. Even those I have related are considerably abridged. If any incident is in this work should appear uninteresting and trifling to most readers, I can only say as my excuse for mentioning it, that almost every event of my life made an impression on my mind and influenced my conduct. I early accustomed myself to look at the hand of God in the minuest occurrence, and to learn from it a lesson of morality and religion. And in this light, every circumstance I have related was to me of importance. It's so interesting that he's ending on this note, because this is why I think the LEV Project is important. What he's surmising at this point. After all, what makes an event important unless by its observation we become better? And oh man, Olaudah, I'm gonna have to back up. You know, you did some wild stuff, but he's ending the LEV Project for 2016 for me. So I'm gonna let the wisdom of the elder speak right now. He says, because I know some people like Emunah, this is, you know, it's long, or it's too much, or I don't think it's important. Let him wrap it up. I early accustomed myself to look at the hand of God in the minuest occurrence, and to learn from it a lesson of morality and religion. And in this light, every circumstance I have related was to me of importance. After all, what makes any event important unless by its observation we become better and wiser, and learn to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before the Most High. To those who are possessed of his spirit, there is scarcely any book or incident so trifling that does not afford some profit, while to others the experience of ages seems of no use. Dang, y'all know I didn't read this, right? I was reading it with you. I didn't even know he's ending like this. And even to pour out to them the treasures of wisdom is throwing the jewels of instructions away. Good night, everyone. If you would like to hear that portion again, just go back, listen to it. I think he said and encompassed at that latter portion the whole reason for presenting this LEV project. I hope it was beneficial for instruction, for wisdom and understanding. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. See you on the other side of this make-believe New Year, and go in peace. One.